according to most Israelis, it is a failure because they simply aren't bringing them back. They haven't been able to bring back any hostages from Gaza since the ceasefire was broken by Hamas on December the 1st.
Israel is expanding its ground operation into the central Gaza Strip, close to 3 refugee camps. The UN has expressed grave concern after Israeli strikes reportedly killed dozens of people in those camps, those centrally located camps, in recent days. Heavy fighting remains in the south of Gaza as well. Israel has warned Hamas the war will last for months. Let's speak now to Jotam Confino, who's the foreign editor at Jewish News. Good afternoon to you, Jotam.
Good afternoon to you.
The Knesset has warned, Jotam, that the war's likely to continue for months. I just wonder how Israeli people feel about that. What is the response?
Well, I think this was to be expected from the beginning, really. I don't think anyone in Israel thought that Hamas could be crushed within 3 months. Most experts, actually, at the beginning of the war said Israelis should be expecting months, if not years, of fighting. What the Israelis are talking about more is whether this military strategy that the government has laid out to get the hostages out, whether that's a failure. And according to most Israelis, it is a failure because they simply aren't bringing them back. They haven't been able to bring back any hostages from Gaza since the ceasefire was broken by Hamas on December the 1st. So there's a lot of anger in Israel, actually, that the army and the government continue to aggressively attack Hamas in Gaza because it's endangering the hostages that are held by Hamas underneath the ground.
Yeah, we are hearing reports from central Gaza about just how many Gaza civilians are sort of having to move but have nowhere to move to. So those central areas normally home to about 90,000 Palestinians. There are 6 shelters now hosting about 61,000 displaced people, mostly from the north of the Gaza Strip. And the issue here that we're hearing, Jotam, is that they simply don't have anywhere to go. They are having to stay put, and there is a huge, danger to life with the insistence from Israel of going into that central Gaza area, presumably to hunt out Hamas, to try and get hold of the hostages. But how do you do that when there are, potentially 150,000 people there?
Well, it's a disaster. It was a disaster from the beginning. Everyone knew this. Hamas lured Israel into a war, not lured, it provoked outright by massacring 1,200 people. And it knew that the minute that Israel entered Gaza, it would mean thousands of Palestinian civilians killed because Hamas is everywhere. It's in schools, hospitals, and civilian residential buildings. And it knew that the longer the war continues, the more civilians will be killed and the more pressure will be on Israel to stop the war and to have a long-lasting ceasefire to allow Hamas to stay in power. And this is exactly what's happening. Now, to suggest that you could eradicate a terror organization in such a small area with more than 2 million people, most of whom are civilians, without a high civilian death casualty is naive. Now, that being said, Israel is also being criticized, and rightly so, for being extremely aggressive, for conducting an extreme amount of airstrikes, mainly to prepare the ground for the soldiers. And of course, this is a legitimate criticism. There's no way around it. But to expect that civilian casualties could be almost nullified or minimized in such a way that it's not considered aggressive, when you talk about Gaza, I think that's really naive, really.
In terms of pressure on your prime minister, I mean, do we get to a point, Jotam, do you think, when, Israeli civilians, other political pressure surrounding him gets to a point where someone tries to make a move on his premiership, if that is indeed possible?
I think so. I think Netanyahu's days are numbered. I don't see how he can survive this. He has been able to divide the country for years, and he's been able to politically maneuver around scandal after scandal. But this is one scandal too many. This is something that hit at the heart of Israel, considered the biggest failure in Israeli history when it comes to leadership and to military preparedness. And Netanyahu is the prime minister. He is responsible for this. So whenever the war phases out, not when it's over, but whenever we get to a point where Israel is considered to be in security control of the Gaza Strip, I believe that there'll be elections, simply because that's what the people want. There's no way that this will be a government that continues to be in power for 3 years. There will be mass demonstrations like Israel has never seen before if there aren't elections after the war.
Look, thank you so much for speaking to us, Jotam Confino, who is foreign editor at Jewish News. Take care. Thank you very much for your time.